You ever feel a place before you even arrive? I don't mean déjà vu or intuition. I mean a pressure, like the air around you is holding its breath. That's what it was like the moment the bus took the wrong turn. I'd been riding Greyhounds for most of my adult life, back and forth between waitressing gigs, rehab centers, and the occasional mistake I called a relationship. This trip was supposed to be the clean break, a fresh start, a job lined up in a town where nobody knew my name, my record, or how I took my coffee. But then the clouds turned the color of spoiled milk, and the road outside the window lost its edges. There was no announcement, no crackle from the driver's intercom. One second we were coasting through farmland, golden and sun-bleached. The next, gray. Just gray. Just a color smeared across everything, like the world forgot how to exist in full. I pressed my forehead to the glass and blinked. The trees had vanished. The fields too. We were driving through nothing. I mean, not really nothing, but a road. A narrow, cracked two-lane cutting through the mist. And in the distance, a faded, crooked sign. It read, "Welcome to Grayler." Was this on the route? I asked the man across the aisle, some grizzled guy in a camouflage cap who hadn't spoken since Toledo. He didn't answer, just stared straight ahead like he didn't hear me, or like he didn't want to. The bus slowed. We passed an empty diner with windows so dusty they looked painted over. A gas station without pumps. Houses stood like gravestones, all warped the same way. Stooped roofs, dark windows, the sort of places you'd imagine kids dared each other to run into on Halloween. Then the bus stopped. There was no depot, just a wide shoulder of crumbling asphalt and a metal bench half swallowed by weeds. I stood. "Driver, this isn't my stop." He turned around then, slowly, and I swear to God I wish he hadn't. Not because he looked wrong, but because he looked tired. Not regular tired, existentially tired, like every mile of this route had dragged something out of him. "You get off here," he said. The doors hissed open. I didn't move. Not at first. But then the silence pressed in, thick and humming, and something in me, some stupid, stubborn part, stood up, grabbed my bag, and stepped out into the gray. The doors closed behind me. When I turned to argue, to demand an answer, the bus was already pulling away. Slow at first, then swallowed into the fog like it had never been there at all. I stood there with my duffel bag, my jacket too thin for the sudden cold, and a knot forming in my gut. Not the kind you get when you forget something, but the kind that tightens when you realize something's watching. And then I saw the man on the bench. He hadn't been there before. Or maybe he had, and I hadn't noticed. He wore a wool coat soaked through with damp. His head hung low. But when I moved closer, he slowly turned it toward me. His eyes were milky. Not blind, just distant. Like they were looking out the wrong side of his skull. "Don't stay too long," he croaked, his voice 1,000 cigarettes deep. "They don't like when new things try to stay." "Who's they?" I asked. But he didn't answer. He just stared past me, past the road, into that churning soup of fog. Behind me, something creaked. I turned. There was a motel now, one I hadn't seen before. Its neon sign flickered weakly. Gray Rest Inn, like it was shorting out in slow motion. I don't know why I walked toward it. Maybe because I was cold. Maybe because I was scared and pretending not to be. Or maybe because when a place like Grayler wants you, it doesn't ask. It just opens its mouth and waits for you to step inside. The door opened before I touched it. Not dramatically. Not the kind of horror movie jolt that makes you gasp. It just creaked inward like it had been waiting on a cue I didn't know I gave. The lobby was dark, lit only by a yellow lamp with a frayed shade. The bell on the counter was dented, the kind of brass that turns green when it forgets what sunlight is. I hesitated. This was stupid. I should have stayed outside. Walked the road, hitched a ride out. But when I looked back, the bus bench was gone. So was the man. And the road? It just ended. Like the gray had swallowed it and left no trace behind. I stepped inside. The floor groaned under my boots. The walls pulsed slightly, like they were breathing. A thin figure emerged from the shadows behind the counter. At first I thought he was wearing a suit, but it was a uniform. Something faded and outdated, like a bellhop in a forgotten time. His name tag was missing, or maybe it was never there. His skin looked powdered, almost dry as old paper. "You'll be staying in room 6, he said, before I could open my mouth. His voice was like a needle dragging through cloth. Keys already in the door. I didn't check in. He blinked slowly, like the act cost him. "You did. Just now." I opened my mouth to argue, but the words slipped away, like they weren't allowed. Instead, I turned. Down a hallway that wasn't there seconds ago. It stretched on too far for a place this small. Doors lined the left side, none on the right, just mirrors. Tall, warped mirrors spaced every 10 feet or so. Each one caught me at odd angles, made me look stretched, hunched, twisted. In one, my eyes were gone. In another, I was smiling when I wasn't. Room 6 was halfway down. The door was open. I stepped inside expecting mold, maybe cockroaches. The wallpaper was yellow, the same pale yellow from my grandmother's house when I was 7. There was a lamp shaped like a flower, a crack in the ceiling just above the bed, shaped exactly like Michigan. My breath caught in my throat. On the nightstand sat a rotary phone. Black. Its cord was frayed and unraveling like something had chewed it from the inside. It rang the second I looked at it. Not once. 3 times. Then silence. I didn't answer it. I mean, would you? Instead, I sat on the edge of the bed, still holding my bag. The window overlooked a parking lot, but there were no cars, just a single lamppost, flickering in that same sick yellow. Under it stood a shape. It wasn't shaped like a person. At least I don't think so. It looked odd. Then it raised its arm and pointed at me. Then suddenly, I heard a knock. It came from the bathroom door. My breath hitched. The doorknob twisted once. It didn't open. Then it twisted again, and then it stopped. I stood and reached for the knob. Don't ask me why. Maybe I thought it was safer to open it than let it open itself. The bathroom was empty. The mirror above the sink was cracked. The tub stained with something black around the drain. And above the toilet, written in what looked like lipstick or blood, or maybe both, were 3 words. You were here. Not you are. You were. Past tense. Behind me, the phone rang again. This time, 4 times. When I picked it up, all I heard was my own voice whispering something I couldn't quite make out. It repeated 3 times before the line went dead. I put the phone down slowly, carefully. Then I looked out the window again. The shape was gone. I decided to go out the hallway, and in one of the mirrors, I saw myself. Standing in a different outfit, smiling. Then she turned and walked out of frame. And just like that, the lights flickered. The hallway went dark, and I felt it. This deep, bone-cold certainty. Whatever this place was, it had been waiting for me. And it didn't care how long I stayed, because it already remembered me. I didn't sleep that night. Maybe I closed my eyes. Maybe I drifted for seconds at a time. But sleep? No. Sleep doesn't breathe against your ear or whisper your name from inside the walls. The walls, by the way, did whisper. They had a rhythm, like an old record skipping every 6 seconds. Not a voice, exactly, but a pattern, like something intelligent trying to speak through drywall. Sometime around what I guessed was 3 a.m., I left room 6. The hallway had changed. It was longer now, wider. The lights above buzzed louder, casting shadows that didn't belong to me. The mirrors were still there, taller than before. They reflected the hall, but not me. Not anymore. In their world, I wasn't present. Except one. One mirror showed me standing there, but instead of my worn travel jacket and jeans, I was barefoot, dressed in a hospital gown that didn't reach my knees. My eyes in the reflection were glassy and vacant, like someone had taken the lights out but left the lamps on. I moved my hand. She didn't. She just stood there, swaying slightly, like the air was heavier where she was. I turned away. The front lobby was gone. In its place was a corridor with green carpet and numbered doors. A hotel now, not a roadside inn. But the carpet was damp, and I could hear dripping somewhere behind the walls. And underneath it all, this humming. Not mechanical, biological. Like something with lungs was hiding in the pipes, breathing in rhythm with the building. I passed room 12, then room 14. I stopped. The door to room 14 was open just a sliver. Inside, the light flickered like candlelight, but there was no flame. Just movement. Shadows crossing the floor in strange, lurching patterns. One of them paused, turned toward the door. I didn't wait to see what it wanted. Farther down the hallway, I found a stairwell. Descending it was like walking into memory. The air grew colder, and the color drained from the walls until everything looked washed in grayscale. At the bottom, I found what I'd seen in the reflection. The Mirror Motel. A perfect duplicate of the one above, but backwards. Like someone had flipped the building inside out and stapled it to reality. Only this time, people were here. They moved in jerks, like puppets with invisible strings. I stood in the lobby, trying not to breathe too loudly. A child sat on the couch near the window, clutching a stuffed animal that blinked at me. He looked up. "Did you forget again?" he asked, head tilting just a little too far. "You always forget." I wanted to leave, to run, but my legs felt submerged, heavy, numb. The boy stood, dragging the stuffed thing behind him. "You're not supposed to be here yet," he said. "It's not time." "Time for what?" I asked. My voice felt strange, like someone had tuned it wrong. The boy pointed past me. Behind the front desk was a narrow hallway I hadn't seen before. He didn't say anything else, just waited, like he knew I'd go. And I did. The hallway smelled like antiseptic and burnt paper. The air felt wrong, compressed, like being in the back seat of a car during a slow-motion crash. I counted the steps as I walked. 7. On the 8th, the hallway opened into a small room. No windows. One door behind me, which shut the second I stepped in, and a mirror. It reflected me, down to the loose strand of hair in front of my eye. Only I was smiling. The smile on the reflection grew. Then I noticed the eyes. Not mine. Like someone else trying very hard to wear me like a mask. Then it raised a hand and pointed at the wall behind me. I turned. More writing. Scratched into the plaster with something sharp. Remember who you were before the motel. If you meet yourself, scream. One of you isn't real. My stomach twisted. The light flickered again. And in that half-second of darkness, I felt breath on the back of my neck. Then a whisper from the mirror. You're not her anymore. I ran. I don't remember opening the door. I just remember bursting back into the hallway, heart hammering, lungs burning. The boy was gone. The staff was frozen. The stairs were gone. Only a single elevator now. Its doors opened as I approached. Inside, a mirror. And behind me in the reflection, the thing in the hospital gown. Waiting. It smiled again. This time I screamed. The scream didn't echo. It just stopped. As if the elevator swallowed it whole. I backed into the farthest corner of the metal box, hands shaking, mouth still open but no sound coming out. The thing in the hospital gown, the not me, stood just outside the doors, inches from crossing the threshold. But it didn't move. It only stared, head cocked like a crow listening for something underground. Then the doors slid shut with a chime that sounded suspiciously like a heartbeat. A single button glowed. Not lobby, not 1 or G or even B for basement. Just a dash. A minus sign. Floor 1. And we began to descend. The lights overhead flickered in rhythm with the humming beneath my feet. That same biological hum I'd heard in the mirrored motel. The kind that makes your gums itch and your fingernails feel loose. I leaned against the side of the elevator, trying to breathe evenly. Then the walls turned to mirrors, not all at once, gradually, metal to glass, seam by seam, until I was surrounded, reflections in all directions. But none of them were me. One version was older, gray streaks in her hair, eyes glassy with resignation. Another wore makeup I hadn't touched in years, and a dress I swore I'd burned. One had no face at all, just a blank stretch of skin from forehead to chin. They stared at me, all of them. But it was the child version that made my knees buckle. She was maybe 6, pigtails, pink sneakers, a bruise blooming beneath her eye like an ink stain. She didn't look angry or sad. She looked tired, like she'd seen too much, too soon, like maybe she was still seeing it. The elevator dinged. The mirrors vanished. The doors opened onto something that wasn't a floor at all. It was a hallway, yes, but longer than it should have been. The kind of hallway that bends logic and scale, stretching into a darkness that never gets closer no matter how far you walk, and lined with doors. All of them marked with names, not numbers, names I recognized. My 3rd grade teacher, the kid who drowned at summer camp, the name I gave the cat we buried behind the garage. People, places, fragments, each name like a piece of lint pulled from the pockets of my mind. And then, my mother. I stopped. The door marked Miranda Mom pulsed faintly, like it was breathing. I pressed my palm to the surface. It was warm. "Don't," came a voice behind me. I turned. The girl from the mirror. The one in the pink sneakers. She stood barefoot on the concrete, hair disheveled, lips chapped. She looked exactly like I remembered, and nothing like I remembered, because I never remembered her outside me. "This is where we break," she said. I didn't understand. "You're closer to the crack than you think," she whispered. "They're trying to make you forget, one piece at a time." "Who?" I asked. "Who's doing this to me?" She stepped closer, close enough for me to see the constellation of freckles I used to hate. "You are," she said. "You wanted to forget." Then she lifted her hand and pressed something cold into mine. A key. Old-fashioned, iron, teeth chipped like it had been gnawed on. The tag read, "Room 0. She didn't explain, just backed away and disappeared into one of the name-marked doors, which closed behind her without a sound. I turned the key in my hand. It was heavier than it looked. Room 0. I kept walking until I saw it. It wasn't like the other doors. It was newer, shinier, as if it hadn't aged with the rest of this place. The tag swung gently from a rusted nail. Room 0, Forgotten Things. I fit the key in the lock. It turned. The door opened with a sigh, like the exhale of something very large, very old and very tired. Inside was darkness, but not empty darkness. It watched. I stepped in, and the door closed behind me. The room didn't smell like dust or mildew, the way old spaces usually do. It smelled like copper and citrus, burnt just enough to sting the back of the throat. There were no walls. Or rather, there were. But they shifted, pulling away from me as I walked, stretching like fabric soaked in breath. The floor moved too, subtly, just enough to give the sense that I was either walking in place or being gently carried forward by something under the surface, something alive. And then the whispers started, soft at first, familiar. They said my name, not the one I use now. My real name. The one I haven't spoken aloud since the night I drove away from a house I swore I'd never return to. I turned in a slow circle, trying to see where they came from. But there was no source. Just walls that rippled and faded, and voices that sounded like they were coming from the inside of my skull. I ran, not because I thought it would help, but because my legs needed to do something. The air grew thick, humid with memory. Every breath tasted like old dreams and fire. I darted into what looked like an alleyway, though I hadn't seen any streets. Just a thin passage that appeared between two twitching walls. And that's when time broke. I swear to God, time broke. I saw myself up ahead, running, but I was still moving forward, still chasing myself. Then I turned and saw me again, behind. Some versions were crying, some laughing. One was just standing still, arms limp at her sides, staring directly at me with eyes that weren't quite mine. I stopped, just for a second, and the walls fell away, like wallpaper stripped back too fast, revealing something underneath. Not physical, but aware, like the outline of a god drawn in the folds of thought. An intelligence so enormous it pressed in on me from every angle. And it wasn't watching me. It was wearing my physical form. I stumbled back and hit a door that hadn't been there a moment ago. The kind of door you find in diners off highways you can't remember driving down. I pushed through. Inside, it was a diner, just like you'd expect from some forgotten Route 66 postcard. Vinyl booths, a checkered floor, a waitress with no eyes taking orders from a menu that bled down her forearms like syrup. The air hummed with unreality. I slid into a booth. Don't ask me why. Something in the rhythm of the place demanded obedience, like following the rules might keep me from being noticed. A menu appeared. It was blank. The waitress waited, pen poised like a scalpel. The man at the counter turned slightly, wrapped both hands around his coffee cup like it was the last warm thing in the world. "Don't ask," he said. "The place already knows." I looked down again. Words had started forming on the page in front of me, fogging into view like a memory you don't want to remember. That scared the living daylights out of me. I stood fast. So fast the table rattled. The waitress didn't flinch. Neither did the man. I turned, ready to bolt, and the door was gone. In its place, a hallway. Miles long, lit by ceiling bulbs that buzzed and popped, each flicker revealing glimpses of things, shapes, echoes of what might have been people once. At the far end stood me, older, eyes sunken, hair matted, shirt streaked with blood and dust, holding something in my hand, a mirror, cracked into the shape of a key. She saw me and screamed, not with sound but with feeling. It hit me in the gut like a bomb of sorrow. I stumbled back, ears ringing with grief. Then every light in the hall burst at once, and I was blind. When they came back, she was gone. In her place stood something else. Tall, elongated, draped in human features like jewelry. A piece of my cheekbone where a brooch might be. Part of my lip sewn into its collar. It leaned forward and whispered, "You broke the rules." My knees buckled. I didn't know what rule I'd broken. Maybe all of them. Then suddenly, the diner collapsed. Not in ruins, but in concept. The idea of it blinked out, and I was standing in a black field under a sky blinking out one star at a time. At my feet, a torn piece of paper, the same handwriting as before. 3 new rules scrawled beneath. Number 1. If you meet yourself, scream. One of you isn't real. Number 2. If the town smiles, close your eyes. And number 3. The exit isn't a door, it's a choice. And faint, almost invisible at the bottom of the page was another note. It was a warning. It said, "The crack is coming." There's a moment, just before you wake from a nightmare, when your brain forgets what's real. You lie there, unsure if the walls around you are yours, or if the thing you ran from is still waiting in the corner, smiling with your teeth. I never got that moment, because I never woke up. The black field faded like a smudge on an old mirror, and I was suddenly in the middle of a cul-de-sac, not walking, not arriving, just there. The houses around me were wrong in that quiet, screaming way. Identical, but not symmetrical. Their rooftops sloped in unnatural arches. Windows blinked like adjusting eyes. A swing set creaked in the still air, though no breeze stirred. And then I looked up. The sky was peeling. Not storming, not rolling with thunder. It was peeling back like skin, revealing something beneath. Something grinning. A mouth, massive, stretched across the horizon. Lips as wide as the hills. Teeth that gleamed like skyscrapers, yellowed and cracked with time. It didn't move, but the world tilted in reverence. And then the town smiled back. One by one, the houses groaned and shifted, their porches curling upward into grins. Chimneys leaned like nodding heads. The swing fell silent, and then stood up, unfolding on legs too long and too wrong. I remembered the rule. If the town smiles, close your eyes. I slammed mine shut, tighter than tight, and that's when I heard it. A song, drifting like a lullaby played underwater. Notes bent just enough to make my stomach churn, like a music box trying to recall a tune it was never supposed to know. But the worst part wasn't the sound. It was what came with it. Memories that weren't mine. I was 6 again, hiding under a red blanket that smelled like mold and fear, waiting for a knock that never came. Then 17, walking endlessly down a school hallway, opening locker after locker, each filled with my own teeth. Then older, much older. In a hospital bed, tubes in my arms, people around me that wore my face but weren't me. Each memory bleeding into the next. Each life folding in on itself like origami soaked in tears. I was becoming someone else. Or maybe I always had been. When I opened my eyes again, I was inside a house. Not the ones from the cul-de-sac. I'm sure of that. This one was mine. From when I was little. Same cracked linoleum. Same faded yellow wallpaper. Only the pictures were wrong. The frames were there, but the faces were blurred. On the floor, written in crayon, were words that made my blood slow. The crack is near. Do not think of your mother. Do not speak your name aloud. And of course, that's when I heard her. Sweetheart, she called. Soft, gentle, the way she used to wake me up for school. Are you still down there? She's been dead 12 years. I didn't answer. Couldn't. The floor above creaked. I didn't breathe. Didn't move. Then a shadow moved down the stairs. Not a person. Not even a shape. Just an absence of light. A place in the air where reality twisted inward, as if the world didn't quite know how to exist there. It spoke. Dozens of voices layered together, some I'd forgotten, some I wish I still could. One of them was mine. Come up, it said. See what you left behind. I ran. Out the front door. Only it wasn't a door anymore. It was a cornfield. The sky gone. The house gone. Just endless dry stalks rustling in a wind I couldn't feel. Ahead, through the rows, I saw it. The crack. A fracture in the world itself. Hanging in the air like glass, jagged and humming. Through it I saw stars, not ours. Constellations I didn't recognize. Twisting, burning things that made my teeth itch just from looking. I ran for it. Every step grew heavier, like the corn was pulling me back. The whispers turned pleading. Don't leave us. We're still inside you. You'll just come back again. I reached the crack, touched its edge. It burned cold, bit into my fingers with static and electricity. I looked through and saw a world. Our world. People laughing. Living in ignorance of the thing that wears the gray sky like a veil. And then I saw someone else. Me. Standing calmly on the other side like a reflection that had never been shattered. She smiled, raised a hand, and tapped the glass. Then mouthed one word. Switch? That's when I understood. I wasn't the only one trying to get out. Something else wanted to come in. I touched the crack. It felt like falling in reverse, like the world peeled me back layer by layer, scraping off everything I was, everything I'd hidden. Time unraveled in my veins. My memories stretched, tore, and stitched themselves into a shape that wasn't quite mine anymore. Then, I was standing in the middle of a city street, bright lights, honking horns, coffee smells, fast footsteps, laughing voices, the world in motion, the real one. I dropped to my knees on the sidewalk, laughing and crying so hard I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. People stepped around me, gave me side eyes, clutched their purses tighter. A few glanced back, most didn't. But I didn't care. I was out. I was alive. At least I thought I was. Then I noticed small things in my everyday life. A second too long for my reflection to blink. A barista calling my name before I opened my mouth. A song I knew by heart, playing backward on the radio like some DJ had a grudge against time. The world was right, but wrong at the edges. Off in the same way a smile can hide a scream. Nights are the worst. In the hush between 2 and 4 a.m., when the street noise dies and the hum of the fridge sounds like breathing, I see something in the mirror. Not a figure, not quite. Just the suggestion of one. The shape of breath on glass when there's no one to breathe it. It watches. And sometimes I feel it watching from inside, because there are mornings I wake up in rooms I don't recognize. Sometimes I stare at my hands and wonder whose they really are. The left thumb has a scar I've never had. My handwriting has changed. I've caught myself laughing at things I don't find funny. There's a crack forming in the corner of my bedroom wall. A jagged little thing, hair thin, but it's growing. It hums at night. And last night, I saw stars through it. Not ours. Something else. And I think I'm starting to remember being on the other side. Or maybe I'm just forgetting which side I belong to.